Every famous American of the 1870s left a photograph. Sitting Bull sat for the camera many times. Geronimo sold his own portrait at World's Fairs. Red Cloud was photographed in Washington in a suit. But the man who may have been the greatest warrior of them all, the man who broke Custer at the Little Bighorn, left nothing. No verified photograph of Crazy Horse exists. He refused, every single time, to the end of his life. "Why would you shorten my life?" he is said to have asked, "by taking my shadow from me." He never signed a treaty. He never went to Washington. He never touched the pen. And when he died, bayoneted a U.S. Army fort a year after his greatest victory, his parents took his body away into the wilderness, and to this day, no one knows where he lies. This is the story of Tasunk Whitko, Crazy Horse, the warrior who gave the modern world nothing of himself and became immortal anyway. He was born around 1840, near Bear Butte on the edge of the Black Hills, into the Oglala band of the Lakota. And from the beginning, he did not look the part of a Lakota legend. The boy had unusually light skin and soft, light brown curly hair, so distinctive that his childhood name was simply Curly, and settlers who saw him sometimes mistook him at a distance for a captive white boy. He was quiet to the point of strangeness in a culture of oratory. He rarely spoke in council, avoided ceremonies where he would be praised, never joined the boasting and storytelling by which Lakota warriors built their reputations. Others sang of their deeds. Crazy Horse said almost nothing his whole life. The Lakota word for him was that he was strange, a man apart. The strangeness, as it turned out, was the outward mark of something deeper. The event that made him happened when he was still a boy, and it began with a killing he witnessed. In 1854, near Fort Laramie, a trivial dispute over a settler's cow ended with a hot-headed young lieutenant named Grattan marching 30 soldiers into a huge Lakota camp and opening fire, killing the chief conquering bear and being annihilated to the last man in return. The boy Curly saw the chief die. Shaken, he rode out alone onto the prairie and fasted for a vision. What came to him became the operating system of his entire life, a vision of a rider on horseback, floating, untouched, as bullets and arrows streamed past him, a rider whose own people clutched at him from behind, holding him back. The rider wore no war paint, took no scalps, wore only a small stone behind his ear and a single hawk feather. As long as he dressed plainly and took nothing for himself, the vision promised, no enemy bullet could ever touch him. His father interpreted the dream, and in time gave the boy his own name, Tasunk Whitko, Crazy Horse. And here is the uncanny thing, the vision held. For the rest of his life, Crazy Horse rode into battle dressed exactly as the dream instructed, no war bonnet, no paint beyond a few hailstones and a lightning mark, a pebble behind his ear, a single feather, and for more than 20 years of constant warfare, through the most exposed kind of fighting a man could do, no bullet ever touched him. He made a specialty of the most dangerous role in Lakota warfare, the decoy, riding slowly, alone, in easy rifle range of enemy soldiers, taunting them to chase him. Soldiers emptied their guns at him. Horses were shot from under him twice, by the accounts, and men beside him died. He was never hit by a bullet in his entire fighting life. His people concluded the obvious, the vision was true, and Crazy Horse was bulletproof. Whatever a modern reader believes, every Lakota who followed him into battle believed it, and men will follow a man like that anywhere. His genius as a decoy created the Army's worst defeat on the plains before the Little Bighorn. December 1866, the Bozeman Trail, Red Cloud's War, the fight this channel visited in the Bow episode, but look at it now from behind Crazy Horse's eyes. Captain Fetterman, who had boasted he could ride through the whole Sioux Nation with 80 men, was given exactly 80 men. Crazy Horse led the decoy party, 10 riders who feigned exhaustion, dismounted as if their horses were done, taunted, lingered, bleeding the soldiers' patience until Fetterman's whole command charged over Lodge Trail Ridge in fury. On the far side, hundreds of warriors were lying in the grass and gullies. Not one soldier survived. It was the perfectly executed trap, and the bait, the whole hinge of the plan, was one unhittable man walking his horse calmly in rifle range of 80 enraged soldiers. Crazy Horse was 26 years old. Understand what made him different from other war leaders, because it was not just courage. The Lakota way of war prized individual glory, counting coup, taking trophies, the brilliant personal deed. Crazy Horse, alone among his peers, fought like a general. He drilled his men to fight as units, to hold back until the moment, to aim for the enemy's cohesion rather than for personal honors. He himself, obeying the vision, took no scalps and claimed no trophies. Witnesses describe him in battle as eerily calm, dismounting to shoot accurately while others fired wild from horseback, covering retreats personally, always the last man out. Off the battlefield he was more unusual still. He gave away nearly everything he owned, kept nothing for himself, lived plain as a poor man, though he was the most famous fighter of his nation. The Lakota made him a shirt wearer, one of the young men formerly charged with living for the people rather than themselves. Even after a scandal over a woman cost him the shirt, the people followed him anyway. The office was ceremony. The following was real. When the Black Hills Gold Rush tore up the Fort Laramie Treaty and the government ordered the free Lakota onto reservations by January 1876, Crazy Horse's answer was silence and absence. He simply stayed out, and the free bands gathered around him and Sitting Bull. That June, the army came for them, and in 8 days Crazy Horse fought the 2 battles that fixed his name in history. First, on June 17, he led perhaps 1,000 warriors against General Crook's column on the Rosebud, a sprawling, 6-hour, coordinated assault of a kind the plains had never seen, pressing charge after charge until Crook's advance was dead and the general pulled his 1,000 men out of the campaign entirely. And then, 8 days later, on the greasy grass, when Custer's 7th Cavalry attacked the Great Village, Crazy Horse led the sweeping flank attack that sealed the destruction of Custer's 5 companies. Warriors who were there described him riding through the fire untouched, calling the Lakota rallying cry, "Today is a good day to die." He was the greatest fighting leader on the field of the Army's greatest defeat. Victory, as the Lakota learned, was the beginning of the end. The nation could not outfight winter. Through the following months the Army burned villages and food through the coldest season in memory, and one by one the free bands bled toward the agencies. In May 1877, with his people starving, sick, and ragged around him, Crazy Horse did the thing he had sworn never to do. He came in. But even the surrender he turned into something else. Nearly 900 people followed him toward Fort Robinson in a column miles long, the warriors singing war songs as they came, mounted and painted, so that the watching soldiers said it looked less like a surrender than a triumphal parade. He gave up his rifle. He never gave up anything else. He refused to go to Washington to meet the president, refused the photographers who swarmed the agency, refused, quietly and completely, to become a tamed exhibit of a defeated people. And that refusal, in the poisonous politics of the agencies, is what killed him. At the agency, Crazy Horse remained what he had always been, silent, plain, and immovable, and his mere presence became dangerous. The thousands of Lakota at the agencies still looked to him first. The army courted him, wanting him as a scout against other nations. Older agency chiefs, Red Cloud among them, saw their influence eclipsed by a man who did not even want it. Jealousy, rumor, and bad translation did the rest. Whispers reached the officers that Crazy Horse planned to bolt north, or to murder General Crook at a council. At one fatal meeting, an interpreter, by most accounts, twisted his words, rendering his promise to fight alongside the army until all the enemies were dead as a threat to fight until all the white men were dead. The order came down: arrest him, put him in the guardhouse, ship him in chains to a prison cell in Florida. Crazy Horse was told none of that. He was told, by men he trusted, that he was coming in for a talk. September 5, 1877, Fort Robinson, Nebraska. Crazy Horse walked between the soldiers calmly until the door opened and he saw what was inside: barred cells, chained men, a jail. He recoiled and spun, a knife came out, and in the struggle his own arms were pinned from behind by a Lakota little big man, once his friend, exactly as the boyhood vision had always shown, his own people holding his arms while the danger struck. A soldier of the guard drove a bayonet through his back. No bullet, in the end. The vision had kept its precise, terrible word. He died that night on the floor of the adjutant's office, refusing the cot, lying on the bare ground as he had lived, with his father singing the death song outside. His last recorded words to the officer beside him carried no hatred. He had only wanted, he said, to be let alone. He was about 37 years old. It was 1 year, almost to the season, since the Little Bighorn. And then Crazy Horse did one last thing no other legend of the West managed: he vanished. His elderly parents were given his body, and they carried it away on a travois into the Badlands, and buried him in secret, somewhere out on the land, no one knows where to this day. No grave, no monument, no relics. The historical record holds not one verified photograph, not one signature. He never learned to write and never touched the treaty pen, not one acre he ever ceded. Every other great name of the era ended up catalogued, photographed, interviewed, paraded, buried under a marker. Crazy Horse left the conquerors nothing at all to own. The man who believed a camera would take his shadow made sure, in death, that nothing of him could ever be taken. It is why, of all the warriors of the plains, he is the one who feels least like history and most like myth. He is the shape of the resistance itself, present everywhere in the story, and nowhere in the archive. Which makes his afterlife the strangest irony in the Black Hills. Since 1948, on a granite mountain 17 miles from Mount Rushmore, workers have been carving the largest sculpture on Earth, the Crazy Horse Memorial, the warrior on horseback, pointing over his horse's head toward the lands of his people. The face alone, completed in 1998, is nearly 9 stories tall. The whole carving, if ever finished, will dwarf Rushmore. It was begun at the invitation of the Lakota elder Henry Standing Bear, to show the world that the red man has great heroes too. And it is fiercely controversial among the Lakota most of all. Because the model's face is invented, no one knows what Crazy Horse looked like. And because many Lakota ask the obvious question, is dynamiting a sacred mountain into the portrait of a man who refused every portrait and honor, or the final, perfect misunderstanding? He asked to be let alone, and to leave no image. The modern world answered with the biggest image ever made. So remember Crazy Horse the way the Lakota remember him, not as a face, because there is none, but as a shape of integrity that never once bent. A strange, quiet boy who was handed a vision and obeyed it to the letter for his whole life. A general the army never defeated in open battle, from the Fetterman fight to the Rosebud to the greasy grass. A rich man's talent with a poor man's teepee, who gave everything away and kept only the war. A leader who surrendered his rifle to save his people and surrendered nothing else, not his shadow, not his name on a paper, not his grave. His people keep his memory the way he kept himself, close, plain, and out of reach of the cameras. Next on this channel, the Navajo Long Walk, the other trail of tears that America forgot. Subscribe, and keep learning the history they left out.